What's up, everybody? It's your friend Isaac from Big Bike BMX. And you guys, this is an episode that you've been waiting for. I know you've been waiting for it because I've been waiting for it. This is a bucket list thing for me. And once you see, I mean, you've probably seen the title already, so you know exactly what's about to happen. But you guys, we have one of my idols and one of my Craig. Before I'm gonna skip you, dude. Craig, introduce our guest, and then we'll get into this because I am hyped, you guys.
Yeah, dude. Every time I see you like this, man, I know you're hyped, man. It gets me so hyped, Isaac, dude. I can't wait to hear everything that's gonna come out tonight, dude. I'm super stoked to have our guest tonight. He's an iconic guy in BMX racing, mountain bike, and the BMX industry in general. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the founder and president of Box Components, Mr. Toby Henderson. Welcome to the show, Toby.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Man,
Awesome.
I am like a 12-year-old kid right now because, okay, you guys, I'm gonna give you the backstory. If you don't follow me on Instagram and you don't follow Todd Lyons or SE Racing on Instagram, every time Todd drops a preview of hey, working on some things, or he shows a new bike, everyone jumps in or like, this is the new blah, blah, blah. And 100% of the time, I always say it's the new Henderson Hauler. Because you guys, the first BMX bike that I ever got when I was 9 years old, the very first, I was like, Mom, I want a real BMX bike. It was a dream come true. I woke up on Christmas morning and I had a chrome and black Henderson Hauler, and it had a free wheel. Yeah, dude, it had a free wheel and it had the pads. And dude, I don't think I remember. I didn't open anything. That was the only thing that I opened. And I just sat on my bike and was like waiting for like daylight to come out. Cause I was a little kid. I woke up early. I wake up, I call my best friend, Adam Perry. What's up, Adam? And I call him. I was like, dude, I got a Henderson Hauler. And he goes, dude, I got a Henderson Hauler. And I was like, dude, true story. I was like, no, you didn't. He goes, get over here. So I literally jumped on my Henderson Hauler, and little me, big bike. I'm like this, dude. I'm just like, I ride over to Adam Perry's house. I pull up and there's Adam. He had the blue one. I had the black one. And nice. Dude, we shredded those bikes. So Toby, every time SE or Todd posts a new bike, I'm like, Henderson Hauler. And I think we've actually created the Henderson Hauler Army. And, if you look at some of Todd's posts, you'll see that I get lots of likes and lots of, yeah, let's have a Henderson Hauler. And now every time a Henderson Hauler shows up on eBay, I get it sent to me every single time. And I love it. Everyone that does that to me, I appreciate you. So, dude.
Yeah, I don't know why there's no Henderson Hauler at SE. I have my suspicions, but we'll get into that, I guess.
Dude. Okay. So also the first thing I want to ask you, because I remember reading when I was a kid, and as we all do, all the fans of our show grew up BMX Action magazine, Toby Henderson, Coca-Cola Cowboy, right? Nickname.
Yes.
And
not my favorite, but yeah.
Not your favorite. So I read somewhere that like, do you know where that nickname came from other than Bob Osborne, right?
Well, I've said it before, but when it all started and Bob was making heroes out of us, God bless him, what he did for us. And we went to dinner and he's looking at me like, you don't have a nickname. And it was brought up in the conversation. It's the first time I'd been out with Bob, and I ordered a Dr. Pepper, man. That's all I got to say. So then the next day he's running ads and I'm Coca-Cola Cowboy. So I have no idea where that came from. It was all him. He gave it to me and I thought it was the weirdest thing ever. But I also thought Hutch sleeves were weird. And I know now today I was wrong. So there you go. So
all right. So, well, I'm glad this is my gift to you. So this morning I called Bob Osborne in Livingston, Montana.
No.
I swear to God. I swear to God. I called Bob and I said, hey, Bob. And he goes, what's up, Isaac? And I said, hey, I only have a couple minutes, bro, but I am interviewing Toby Henderson tonight. And he goes, I love Toby Henderson. Give him a kiss for me. And I was like, all right, but I was like, whatever Oz wants, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You got it, Oz. I said, I heard you gave Toby the nickname Coca-Cola Cowboy. He goes, I did. I was like, do you remember why? And here's the story. He had a, I'm not going to say he had a, I'm going to say he had a few favorites is basically the way he said it. I had a few favorites, and you and Jeff, is it Botima? Botima. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard it said. I've only just read it. So there we go.
Botima.
And Botima was a finesse rider. Toby was talent, and Toby was good looking. All this is from Bob's mouth. Swear to God, put it on the kids. Toby's a good looking guy. The fans loved him. The ladies loved him. So I thought the same way you just said, he was making rock stars everyone. He goes, Coca-Cola Cowboy, and it stuck. And I was like, all right, man, I'm gonna let him know. And he goes, all right, dude. So there you go, straight from Oz Osbourne's mouth.
I have no idea where he came up with it. You know, like I said, I had dinner with him for the first time I drank a Dr. Pepper, so I never knew the story. There you go. Now we know.
So, man, you have had. I mean, you've been in BMX forever. Like you have. Wow. Is there a time when you haven't been on a bike? Like, is there?
Yeah, between my BMX career and my mountain bike career, it was tough, man. I had to work in the family business, which was insurance, and I hated that. So I did everything I could to get out of the family business and go on race bikes again. And that's how basically my mountain bike career started, which was actually a real successful for me. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, that would be the only time. And during that entire time, I was lucky enough that my dad let me train and ride my bike and try to become a cross-country haunch, which my body does not fit cross-country mountain biking. So yeah, I rode the entire time. I just didn't make money. Now, one thing I did do was, and was lucky to have, is John Greger from JT actually paid me a salary from 1979 to 1998 consecutively for 20 years. He paid me enough basically to pay my house payment. So I have to give John Gregory all the property I own, give that kudos to him, because I was the only guy that I think he did that for. And so during those tough years when I wasn't making money riding my bike, John Gregory was paying me to wear JT. And it was awesome. And I actually talked to him a couple of days ago, came across a photo and sent it off to him. And he's one of the guys that made it happen. So anyway, yeah, I was really lucky in that sense to have 24 years as a rider, but there was some tough times between BMX and mountain bike for sure.
Yeah. I got to say, one of the things, Toby, I've posted your picture. I've posted your BMX photos on my page for years now. And, there's I love the advertisements from back then, first of all, but I got to say, looking at, I was doing some research, looking at your past, your accomplishments. It looked like, from such a young age, around 12 years old, you were getting into, races and just having the spotlight. One of the things that I found most intriguing was the LA Coliseum race. I think it was like 79 or something like that. Is that around the time that was?
Are you talking about the story when I wanted to turn pro and all that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, because that seemed to be like such a memorable moment. Can you elaborate a little on that one?
Yeah, it's 78. It was actually the Lakers stadium, which was the Lakers indoor stadium next to the Coliseum at the time, which was this round dome thing. And the story goes, I was racing motorcycles. So from the time I was, I like two wheels, whatever. So I was started right when I time I can get my license. I kind of quit racing BMX as a youngster and was going to motocross. And so all week long, I would dig a ditch and I would get my money and I'd go buy a tire for this motorcycle and I'd go race that motorcycle. That's what I was doing for, I don't know, about a year and a half in high school. Anyway, Jeff Botima was a friend of mine and we kind of knew him through local people and kind of a hero at the time. So Jeff says, hey, why don't you come out to a BMX race in Downey, which is a local park by us, or local city and park. And so I went over to Downey to watch Jeff race his bike at 3 p.m. I'll never forget, 3 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. I think I'd raced my motorcycle that morning at Saddleback, and I came back down and went over to this park. Jeff wins, for the pro class. He wins $300. And I'm like, what the hell? So the next morning I sold that motorcycle. Literally the next that next morning, I think I got $1,200 for it. Went straight to Ralph's Bicycles and bought by far the best bike I could get my hands on, which was a Redline. right? So, you know, white spokes and just bullseye hub, everything I could get for that, all in. And the goal was to go to this race at the Forum, this was called the Lakers Forum, next to the Coliseum. And if you win 16 novice, you can become a pro. 16 novice or 16 whatever, 16 and over, what was called novice, was basically you had to go through that to become a pro. Absolutely went to that event so I can get my pro license to win. Nothing else mattered for 3 or 4 months between selling that motorcycle and getting that bike to go win this race. But I get to the race and I get to the first turn and I'm in second. And I just hammered this guy in front of me. I don't know who it was. Just basically knock him out of my way. And I went on to win that race. And anyway, winning the race, it turned me pro. So Jeff and I were friends. He's riding for DG and he gets me on the DG team. And next thing you know, I'm pro. And I'm going for this because I want that $300. That's what it's like. I want to quit digging ditches at this point in my life, right? That's what I did for a living. So anyway, that's how it all kind of started, you know, and then it turned on to whatever we're going to talk about next. But yeah, that was very, very, I don't know, that was a turning point for sure to give up that motorcycle and to go make money riding a bicycle. So
that is fantastic, dude. That's so great. Everyone, man, because we all had that one job, man. Mine was Wiener Schnitzel, dude. Wiener Schnitzel was the worst job I ever had. And then, but yeah, dude, I mean, and honestly, I got to tell you, man, you were so gracious. I'm going back to my childhood, you know, just for a second, because I told you, I texted you the story, but so this would have, man, God, 82, maybe 83. I don't know, man. I've fallen on my head a lot. So dates are horrible for me, but
that's my joke. But anyway,
I'm just saying, dude. So my mom takes me to, we lived in Lodi, which is right next to Stockton. And we went to the Stockton Fairgrounds to see the big BMX race. I think it was ABA, I think was the sanctioning body back then, I think. But anyway, man, I get there and towards Stockton, this was before they had the tunnel. And so this was like the first design that Stockton went through 2 designs. This is the first design. And you were at the tent. The SE tent was right after the finish line over on the right-hand side. And I'm walking by and I see you sitting there and I'm like, and I just stop and my mom's like, what's going on? And I was like, that's Toby Henderson. That's my bike, Mom. And she goes, hey, we had a Polaroid camera, you guys. That's how long ago this was. She goes, hey, can you take a picture with my son? And I was like, dude, white. I turned white. I was like, Mom, oh my God, I can't believe you just did this. I was so embarrassed and terrified. And you're like, yeah, come here. And so I go over there and I'm like just standing there and you're like, and I was like, I have your bike. I remember I didn't look you in the eye. I was so scared. I was just like, I have your bike. And you were like, that's cool, man. You want to sit on mine? I was like, no, I don't want, of course I did. But I was like, no, I don't want to. My mom's like, get up on the bike, get up on the bike. So I sit on the bike. So I have literally, well, now it's an orange picture because it's, you know, it's been 100 years for me.
I was going to say 100.
Yeah. And here I am, little me, like on your bike like this. You're standing behind me, perfect pose, dude. And I got to tell you, man, I remember to this day, like I remember that entire interaction and I appreciate it so much. But do you have like a favorite, do you remember like a favorite track or a favorite race that you had? If you had to pick like, you know, one that was like, and it doesn't even have to be like, man, I won this, but just a time when you were like, man, this was a pure BMX race where you were like, everything. It's just one of those things. Like I rode flatland. So I can tell you like, man, I remember a contest that I didn't win, but man, I had such a good time at. And I'm just trying to think like, man, what was that for you?
Well, I think the most memorable one is winning the 1983 NBL Grands. But I think it was a period of time where I went from Coca-Cola Cowboy to Captain Elbows, right? It was a period of time. There was a period of time, and Oz did call me that, and it's in whatever magazine. Who knows anymore the dates? But there was a period of time, and it was about a girl, and it was all these things going on in my life where I was winning all the time, and it was probably very profound, because when you got to that position and you're beating Stewart and you're beating Greg and you're beating these guys on a regular basis, and your nickname goes from this Coca-Cola Cowboy to Captain Elbows because you're feared. I think that was a time that was really special to me, because I was the guy to beat. And like I said, it was kind of girl driven, but I was in a good place at the time. And I went to the NBL Grands, and Duca from Oakley stand up and I draw lane 1. Right. And I like the track. It's a downhill, doubles in the first turn. He's like, you can win this. And he's rubbing my back and getting my Oakleys on. And there's a picture hangs in my office now that Oz put out. And the caption, as it shows me going into the first turn and first, and basically said, if you ever seen a pro main, you don't know how brutally fast these guys are. And that was special, because in this photo, I'm leading Gray, Harry, Patterson's, Eddie King, just everybody. And what's the biggest thing to me is in the photo, everybody in that race was 1 digit, right? I was number 7. Everybody in the photo has 1 digit on their bike. So for me, it's like, okay, the system works. There's 10 fast dudes, or there's 9 numbers with 1 digit, right? 9, that's all we get, right? And one guy didn't make it, Stewart, number 1. He didn't make the main that time. He was number 1 at the time. But it worked. The system worked. You went through motos, quarters, semis. You get to the final, and you got the best 8 guys, right? Minus Stewart in that case. He's usually in most of them, right? Anyway, so yeah, I think that was probably the time when I won that. And then I went on to win the Cruiser and put $6,000 cash, just cash from that day in my pocket, and not including the contingencies and all that kind of stuff. But I think that I remember driving. We drove home. We were so celebrating. We're just getting a car, drive. This has been a great day, and that would probably be a period and/or a race. But there's so many good ones. There's so many. Gnarler Park in Long Beach that Scott put on. We had to jump over the water hole. Then the ESPN series, which was really crazy with the big money and all that, and how fast we all were, and how competitive it was. So yeah, there's a lot of them, but I think that period, that one race, that period of time when I was winning all the time was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that period of time, it's like you just named them off. You had Stewart, you had Eddie King, you had Greg Hill, and on and on and on, and yourself. It's just like the all-star lineup there. Were you ever like not fearful, but did you go, oh man, I know this is going to be a head on with whatever, right? Like what rider did you go, man, me and him, this could go head to head real hard. And I mean,
well,
did you ever,
I have different takes on that.
I hope Stu doesn't make the main.
Well, there's always Stewart, right? And I actually, if I ever going to say anything, I think Stewart's probably the greatest BMXer of all time, for me. Even though David Clinton's my hero and he inspired me, and then I had a clash with Harry Larry, but now we're buddies. But I think Stewart is probably the best of all time. In my opinion, if I had to ever pick a person, it'd be Stewart by far. But no, I had a clash with Harry on his home tracks. I was trying to win that race. I was going out to Azusa, and I had to go against Harry, and I had to show up against Harry on a regular Wednesday and Friday night, and to do so on his home track was very difficult. But the funny thing about it, you guys probably like the story, is I knew these guys. Right out of high school, I wasn't at the keg party. I was at the BMX track, and I missed my entire after high school friends deals because I was gone every weekend and we were racing. And even these guys were my nemesis at the time. They've all became my friends now, at least most of them. Stewart and I get along really well. Harry and I get along really well. Eddie, Perry Kramer, these guys, right? Patterson brothers, we can talk now and then. But anyway, it was the funny thing was I knew these guys, I knew how they rode, and I could predict my day in a moto with them. I knew to stay away from Tommy Bracken's elbows. I knew if Anthony was in front of me, don't follow him. I knew these things. So the people I feared the most, and you'll probably enjoy this one, was when I would go off to some Midwest race and you got the local hero, right? And the local hero could transfer along the way and make it all the way up to the semis, usually not the main. But so you got this race. Oh, yes, Harry's over there, and it's great. I got it all figured out, right? How I'm going to do today. But here's a guy who's local, who's fast, right? And he's going really fast. That's the guy who I feared because I was unknown. I didn't know about this guy. We're at his track. He's local. The people are paying attention to him. How do I beat this guy? I have no idea about him. The sad part about that is when it got to the main event or the semi, somewhere around there, that guy kind of disappeared. because the real bulls came out, and the real bulls were the ones who were going from race to race to race to race. And you just can't beat that experience or that tenure, I would say, every weekend of racing against the guys at that level. You're just going to go with them or you're going to fail, right? So I was lucky to go through all that. And I always want to give credit to my sponsors for allowing that, Raleigh being the first one who actually paid my way to travel around the world. Like Jeff and I think were the first ones to ever leave the country for BMX for Raleigh. So I was lucky to have the sponsorship I needed to be at a race every weekend to tone my skills. But back to your question, the people I feared the most is the ones I didn't know. Right?
Yeah,
that,
dude.
that was the one that I was scared of, right?
That had to play in. That had to play into your travels overseas as well, right? I mean, I know most of the guys traveled over to like, overseas, raced over there, but that must have even been more of those guys who you didn't know, like being a part of that as well. I mean, was that the case with that too?
Yeah, Australia would probably be the most. I think we went to Australia early 1980. And it was legit there. It wasn't, we went to gone to France and England before that, and it wasn't legit yet. It wasn't developed. But we get to Australia, it's a developed sport. The tracks are somewhat, there was one that was semi-hell track-ish. You know what I mean? It was in a junkyard and it had big wooden berms, and we actually started off the top of a container. I mean, so it was kind of legit at the time, and the guys were pretty fast. They just weren't quite, I think, at our speed or my speed. And I wound up winning most. I don't think I got beat, but I won most of it when I was there. But there were some really good guys, and I became friends, and I still talk to some of them now today, but not so much as the local guy when in the mid 80s, when these guys actually started kind of honing their skills in their own hometowns. Right. So, yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. Yeah, you never know, man. Crew shows up and you're like, man, I don't know.
I haven't seen him ride. Let me see. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I kind of want to I really want to talk. I mean, I love the BMX history. But a lot of our fans and what we're into nowadays are the big bikes, right? And the like big bike BMX. That's our podcast. And it's
right.
We're our target, man. And where we've kind of found where our fans are is people like, hey, I just turned 48. I found a PK Ripper, the Big Ripper, last year. And then, Perry's 27.5 came out. And, I started looking at, man, upgrades, because that's kind of what we do, man. That's especially like as kids, it was like, man, you save up and you're going to get that. You're going to get that headset. You're going to get that DK stem or whatever back in the day. Right. And so I go into a bike shop and, I'm like, I really want a better freewheel. I go into a bike shop and I see box, right. And I see these components. I don't know what it is. And then, through the course of the year, I start hearing more and more about box, and I start researching box. And just a couple of weeks ago, I went and hung out with John Bolgens over at Black Mountain, and box has like where every other brand had like a tent, box had basically the entire they had an alley of box,
right?
Where these other brands had like their team there. It looked like a trade show. It's like you took the trade show because of COVID is being gone and brought the trade show to the people. And there was kids lined up there, and it made me so happy, because I remember being that kid that would just stare at the parts and just look at that stuff. Tell me about box and what box is up to, for especially, I may know a lot about it, but if, fans that are watching this and they're just getting it, because the big bike scene is getting so big and it's happening, it's growing leaps and bounds every night. Tell us about box and what you provide to BMX now, because this, to me, I think this is just as fascinating.
Well, let's go before box. In 1990, I had to quit racing, and I started a company called THE, Toby Henderson Enterprises. And I thought I knew what I was doing. And I had a partner come in and we started developing something. And he goes, what's happened? What should we make? And I'll get into box. And I said, I just lost a race by basically half a second. And I had to pull a tear off. And I know that I fumbled a little bit pulling the tear off, downhill race, right in the mud. And I go, if I had a fender and I kept the mud off my face, right? I think I probably would have won that race. So we made a fender, right? A fender for the front of my downhill bike, which had 8 inches of travel, and it looked like a motorcycle. And so that was my first product. And I get to the very first race, and I knew all the pros, and I actually put their name on all these fenders, thinking, okay, I'm going to get Marla Streb, Sean Palmer, whoever to ride my fenders on a day they need it. We show up at the very first race. I have 200 fenders with all my friends' names on them, are the top pros at the time. It's a mud snow fest. So I remember I had my fender on my bike. I go to the top of the mountain. I come down in the snow, and there's a line behind my race rig for people, all the pros, putting the fenders on their bike. My partner at the time, he just slapping fenders with a hammer as fast as he could get them on these bikes. So usually the beginning of the year, the magazines and these people start shooting basically photos for the whole year, for all the posters and all the stuff that we're going to do. This is the heyday of mountain bike downhill. So every poster that year had a picture from that event, because it was very muddy and snowy. The background was great, and everybody had a fender on. I sold 500,000 fenders in about 2.5 years. So I thought I knew bike business. I thought I was a businessman. I know what I'm doing, right? One day we wake up and it's not cool anymore. It's actually cool to take your fender off your bike, not run one. Man, my business crashed, but we had to let go of people and all that. So back to box. So I learned from that experience the business side of because I was a racer for 20 years. So I started learning business real quick. Then I started and combined a company that I called VSI, where I had multiple brands. So I created a brand called Signs. I had THE. I had Etnies BMX. We won 5-time Bike of the Year. My helmet won Men's Journal Product of the Year. I had several patents placed. So somewhere along the line, I had a partner in that one. It was a Korean helmet manufacturer, and the guy was great to me. We got along fine, but he offered me some money one day, and I said, I'm taking it. And I was out, right? I took the money. I go, what am I going to do next? And I started Box. That was almost 10 years ago today. And people said, how do you come up with the name Box? And I go, well, I wanted 3 letters. I want to be the top of the alphabet, and it needs to mean something to me, because with THE was at the bottom of the alphabet. So every trade show, every deck directory, my brand's in the back. I want to be in the front. So I just said Box. It was trademarkable at the time. And anyway, so I started a company called Box with an intention to do better than what I did at the last company, which is to create things from scratch and give a technical advantage to the rider based upon my 20 years as a bike rider. What do I want? Well, I want my grips thin, and I want this, or I want my axle not to twist. I want these things. So this is what I went out to do. And I did it from scratch. I had the money to build it from scratch, where before I was kind of buying stuff out of a magazine, or not magazine, a guide, and put my name on them and creating these things and trying to figure it all out. And anyway, so Box started born from just wanting to be better and different than everybody else. And our slogan is Be Different. That's been our slogan for quite some time, is to do things differently than others. So anyway, so I immediately went after the BMX race crowd, because I knew my old company wasn't gonna make it unless I was there. Sorry. And I'm not boasting, but I just knew. So I went out and made this product better than what I had done before, and my customers followed me. Boom, we own BMX Race. We own it literally within 2 years. We created 700 SKUs in 2 years. And part of that is the freewheel you're talking about, because I was trying to build a 20 millimeter rear axle bike, because I had 20 millimeter in the front. And I learned that from my mountain bike career, to ride a 20 millimeter front axle versus a 10 millimeter axle, completely 2 different bicycles. So I learned that as I was riding suspension and developing suspension and these things. And I brought that to BMX. And it was like, it doesn't matter. Well, there's nobody rides a 10 millimeter axle in pro class anymore. This was 15 years ago when I developed that. I was trying to build the rear end to be the same, and I couldn't wrap a cassette cog or an HG cog around a 20 millimeter axle and stick a bearing in it, hence the freewheel. I was forced to build a freewheel around the outside of a 20 millimeter axle. So I built that, I did that, and later on we were able to figure out different options than the freewheel, but the freewheel stuck. It was a freewheel I had developed with the factory in Taiwan, and it became a very high-end freewheel, kind of for a regular price. It was the kind of concept, right? And we're not a wide industries by any means, but that freewheel was born out of the necessity to make the bike better and to make the bike faster. And it just happened to stick into retro, right? So the retro thing's a whole nother story, but I think that Box for me is about being different. It's about making your bike go faster. And it's about enjoying the ride. And in a BMX bike, you know, if you don't, in a race, if you don't get your elbow over the other guy out of the gate, it's over, right? It's over. So how do you get your elbow in front of the other guy? You need obviously to start, but you need a bike that propels forward and not flexes underneath of you. And that's the concept that we've been pushing. So that's what Box is about. Then we get into the mountain bike stuff, but that's another story. We can move on. But I don't.
No, actually, that's a great. You know what? I do want to bring that up because I'll tell you this, Toby. You know, you'd mentioned that you started your business ventures by just saying, you know, I have a need. I'm going to make something that fits what I need right now for what I want to do, or what environment I'm in, what type of bike I'm riding, and it took off. I mean, you sold millions or just tons of those fenders and stuff like that. With my experience, when I found Box, one of the things, and I had no clue, it was run by Toby Henderson. You know, I was just looking for components that I could use to upgrade what I already had. And I had a 29-inch big bike BMX, and I wanted a braking system that was better than what I had, better than what came with the bike. So when I saw, and I'm looking at a glass countertop full of components, and I'm like, which one do I choose? I can go with this ultra high expensive, everybody knows this brand, seems to be really nice and shiny. I can go with this or that. I was like, you know what? Let me take a look at those box brakes. I started looking at the brake itself and the pads. Now the pad is what the pad was everything for me. It didn't look like a normal BMX pad. It wasn't like a Cool Stop, a very thick, wide pad. This one almost like, I was like, wow, that kind of looks like a hybrid between BMX and mountain bike. It's got the grooves in it. It's got individual pads with the longer pad at the end. And I'm like, this is probably going to be a good fit. And fit my budget. It looked cool. It came in a set. It was the brake and the lever. Let's try it. It was a box 3, I think, maybe, or something similar to that. Man, I took it home, tried it out. I got it mounted up, tried it. And I'm like, this actually is way better than my expectations. I don't run anything on my bikes as far as on my 29s, as far as brakes go, that aren't box, you know? And so like, that really grabbed me that you just said that, like, I had a need. I decided to make this for me. I made it for all my friends. It works. And then here you are developing something where you're being different. You're not cookie cutter. You're not following the pattern, outside the box thinking.
Yeah.
And it's working, dude. And then that's so incredible that you took it to that place. And so were your designs really like where I was getting, and it's a long way to get around to talking about this. You mentioned mountain bike. Are things created in the mindset of mountain bike that work for BMX, or does it just happen that those things work really well for guys who ride BMX bikes, especially big ones?
Well, I mean, for the mountain bike stuff, I think it's a little bit different of a path. And I think I was just naive enough to try mountain biking in a sense of where it is today. So when I first started making mountain bike stuff, I started making similar stuff to BMX. I made a carbon fiber handlebar that looked nothing like anybody else's, and still today it does not. It actually is kind of a knockoff of our BMX forks, which have a very unique shape and look to them, right? Somewhat legitimate as far as how it functions, but more in the fact it's kind of sexy, right? So anyway, I made this, and during that time, I got into the drivetrain side of it, and my brain goes much faster and much more ideas than a team of people can handle. So somewhere along the path, we started getting into the drivetrain, and we were struggling with it. We were sued by the other guys. I won't say any name. We were sued by the other guys multiple times for patent infringement, things like that, and some of them being frivolous, in my opinion. And so we decided at one point for mountain biking, we're going to drop the handlebars, drop the stems, which I think my stems were really sexy. I think they're completely different than what a lot of people were doing. But we decided to focus on the drivetrain. And this is not an arrogant statement, but it is to some extent. I had done a tire company. I had done a helmet company. I had done a BMX complete bike company. I've done these things. What I've never done is drivetrain, which is, and I'm not an engineer, it takes teams of engineers to pull this off, which we do have. And I went after this. And the main reason why is it's a $4 billion business owned by 2 guys. And I want a piece of it. And so we just simply went after it in that respect, but we've taken our lumps along the way. pull ratios and rampings of cogs and all these things are something we've had to learn to do that. But even when I rode my mountain bike, when I raced my mountain bike, that was the weakest part of the bike, was the drivetrain. I helped Shimano develop air shifting, which didn't stick, which probably is a great way to go nowadays. But my bike would flex so much, it would just shift the entire time I was riding it or going down the hill. So I never had a great drivetrain on my bike my entire mountain bike career. But I was able to go, I rode for Shimano for many years, and I was able to follow their ramping systems and hyperglide and all the things that they had done, rapid shift and all that kind of thing. So, but for me, I mean, stuff is really good by those guys. Yeah, good stuff for sure. But I wanted to chase that only because it was a bigger challenge than what I had done before. And we're doing it. We're trying. We're sell a lot of it. I have a long ways to go. But I got into this side of the business and mountain biking specifically because it was a bigger challenge than what I've ever tried to do before. So, and we're trying to be unique and be different by going 9-speed. So as everybody else was going 10, 11, 12, I was following that path and realized that I don't have the resources or the cash or the people behind me to develop 12 or 13 speed. What am I going to do differently? And not only me, but the team at Box basically said, let's give modern geometry, modern ratios to 9 speeds, more durable but modern. And that's what we're hanging our hats on. Our drivetrain, going back to a 9-speed chain, going back to less shifting, makes our drivetrain more reliable. But we still give you that 11 to 50 cog range, right? So for all the big bike guys, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense to you, but on our mountain bike side, that's what we're doing. And I'm kind of proud that we're doing that. And like I said, it takes a team of people much more than I to make it happen. But we're putting a dent in the guys. We're selling a lot of it. We're getting OE spec, and we got our stuff on a lot of bikes in Europe. And as far as OE, when you make the OE side of the business, it's a pretty big deal when bikes are coming with your product on it. And I'm glad to say we're there. So. And
it's already, I mean, you can, I watched the nationals that Isaac, that was out in Arizona just a few months ago. Most every bike I saw had Box forks and Box cranks on it. Obviously you guys are making a difference. You are game changers. Like with design and engineering that you talked about with, trying to make technology or make your components with, all the modern everything, technology and everything, Toby, like how hard was it to do that as far as, thinking of what the components were going to be comprised of? Did you have to like R&D a lot with your components? Did you have to like run them through, who knows what computer program stuff like I like the technical side of that, like you were starting to touch on, because it just seems like they're just so out of the box, so different. And like how much went into like researching carbon fiber, different metallurgies, or, things like that?
Well, like I said, I'm not an engineer. I've been doing this now quite a long time. I think it's more that I find the proper vendor, a guy who knows carbon, but he doesn't know how to style it or what the reasons for. And that's pretty much, what the vendors overseas are. They understand how to make a carbon fiber handlebar, but they don't know what up sweep and back sweep it should be. So I basically go into these vendors and to these factories, and I don't want to say I teach them. I basically take their technology, their know-how, and make it modernized, bring it to what a rider needs. And it's funny, if you pull out the TBG, you pull out the Bible of bicycle in Taiwan, the stuff is so off that how do you get that stuff to current dimensions? You couldn't find an 800 millimeter wide BMX or a mountain bike handlebar 4 years ago. In that you couldn't do it. And I was making wide bars long before other people because I knew that was the direction that things were going. Some of the tire choices I've done and rim shapes and doubling up at the nipples is just all from experience. But I think how I was able to pull that off was to find the right vendor with my idea and convince him to do it the way I wanted it. And funny story real quick is it's something I always remember. I wanted my logos on the rim and I wanted the eyelets to go through it. I know it's simple. Multiple emails, can't do it. Can't put a sticker down and then put an eyelet over the sticker. Can't do it. Come on, this is not engineering by any means. So I'm in China. I go to my rim maker. It's literally 8 o'clock at night. We're tired. We've been driving all day long. And I go in and it's dark. I mean, it's literally dirt floor, one light, hanging over the machine. I mean, you hear these stories, right? And so we go up there and there's this little old lady and she's got a rim and her job was to rotate that rim with her foot and punch the stainless steel eyelet in the rim. So I got a sticker and I went over to a rim that was blank. And I laid it on top of that on the rim and I walked over the machine and I have a guy that takes me around and I asked her to punch the eyelet through the sticker and she does and it doesn't work. And they're like, ha, we're right. So I pulled a pin out of my guy's pocket and I poked a hole in the sticker and asked her to do it again. Bam, eyelet right through the sticker. So as they all looked at me like, a year of me asking you guys, I just want the sticker to be really big because I want my
get
name,
a pack of pins.
I want my name really big and I don't want to go around all these holes with these little tiny things. Right. Anyway, so I have these wheels now with these big, massive stickers and the eyelets go through them. So it's just those kind of things, just going through that. And it's just a lot of work to get the things you want. But I think I depend upon the vendors' know-how to get where I want to go with my experiences. And that's simple. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah.
So
I like the simplicity. Like, to me, what makes, okay. So like when I went and upgraded my Big Ripper, I'm at the shop. And I ended up buying I think it was a box 3 brake lever. And the biggest decision I had to make was, do I want what's the bend that I want?
Yeah.
And you guys understand, my old school friends will understand why this is such a cool thing. Back in the old days, I would have to buy a left and a right lever. I just walked in and it looks the same, real similar when I flip it upside down. And so I didn't have to decide. And the lever's like right. It's not like where you have to pop the lever in the middle. It slides in. And I'm like, how did because the barrel of the brake lever just slides in the side instead of underneath. It just goes in the side, boom, flip it over. Good to go, man. I had to make no decisions. It was so simple. I didn't even know it was your company, dude, to be honest with you. I was just like, that's dope. Like, who thought of that? That's great. That's someone that rides BMX made this. Like, somebody gets it. That's I remember telling Sean. And what's funny is if you go back on our channel, you can watch me talk about it. And it's like one of our biggest, most popular uploads is like, you got a new big BMX bike. What do you upgrade? And
well, you know what? It's funny you say that. I think the shape of the lever is my style, something I like, and that's important. That's convincing the manufacturer to make the lever that way. Because if you didn't control that drawing, and you didn't force it down their throat, you wouldn't get that shape. I forced that shape onto the factory, right? And it took multiple drawings and redrawings and all that to get the way I wanted. But how I did the flip flop, right, was because I was making bikes in my last company, and I had to basically run 2 SKUs side by side because in England and in Australia, your rear brake's on the left side, right? So I'm losing a shitload of money, right? Putting 2 brakes in a box or running this container for the Aussies and this container for US. And I'm dealing with all this mess. I go, why can't we just have a lever that goes on both sides? It's one SKU, it's one bike, and those bikes, well, I don't care what country they go to, I'm covered. And that's where the whole flip-flop thing came from, was just out of necessity to do a better job. Lever shape, yeah, that's me as a rider. The flip-flop design is just basically, and that's one of my patents actually, is the flip-flop, what we call it. Oh my God, I can't remember the name. We got a marketing name for it, but cinch lever or something like that. I forgot what the name is. But
don't we talk about that all the time, Isaac? I mean, we're always like, things that we find the most like friendly to us as bikers, we end up talking, and then we look at the root of where that came from. It always seems to be created and designed and produced by a guy or a company that is run by someone who's been involved with
someone
bikes.
that gets it. Someone that
gets it. I mean, it's like from Todd Lyons to John Bolchins, Toby Henderson. It's like you follow back. You're like, wow, this is designed so well. This works so good, and yet so simple. And you just keep following it back, right? And you're like, wow, Toby Henderson. Wow, there's John Bolchins. Todd Lyons. It just seems to be such a common thread.
It does. It makes sense.
Guys with patience, three of us, because I know people that and riders who tried to do rider-owned companies. If you don't have the patience to get the stuff right, it will drive you bananas. And you know what? A lot of it's wrong. And I want to say, I'm, in business, if you're 60% right, you're doing well. I think 90% of our stuff we come out with does well. If the 10% doesn't work, we just blow it out and move on. I don't let it bother me. I made a mistake. I didn't understand that guy. I listened to the factory. I should have listened to my heart. Whatever the problem was, we just move on. But there's guys who try to do what John and Todd and I are doing. And you got to have a lot of patience because you get pushed back. Cheap, 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 cheap. No, if you turn the radius two more degrees that way, it costs an extra 3 NT, which is like 10 cents. I don't care about the 10 cents. I want the radius this way, right? So this is how we, if you don't have the patience to do that, you're not going to get the product you want. And there are a lot of guys who walk out of the business because they don't have the patience, right? So
yeah, and they're not different. You know what I mean? It's the thing, Yeah. So when it comes to like with big bikes, one of the things that I'm noticing is like, I want to upgrade my parts. I want to upgrade my components. Talk about your 9-speed stuff. I mean, probably the hottest bike right now, the last month, is it's called an SE Fast Ripper, right? It's a big ripper that has gears, and people love them because the biggest thing right now, ride outs. I want to ride for a long distance. Man, I can shift those gears and ride whatever I want, but I'm still riding still feels like my BMX bike.
Right.
And then the other thing, so there's two trains or two sides of a fence here. A lot of my old school friends love them to death, but they are all about, I call it like they purse up their bikes. And what I mean by that is like, oh, Craig, should I say it? I'm just going to go here. Okay. I'm just going to say it.
Yes, say it.
I'm going to say
please, because my whole next conversation we're going to have is all about exactly what you're going to say. Yeah. Why I wasn't into big bikes prior to now, and what I think the future of big bikes are. But I want to hear it from you first.
Toby, I'm a terrible friend because Isaac is looking at me like, should I say it? I will always tell him yes.
Yeah.
Go for
it. Okay. So here's my thing. If you want to go and spend $600 on some bullseye pedals, and you're in a place where you can do that, go buy your $600 pedals.
Right.
On the other hand, I want to ride my bike. If I'm going to fall, I throw my bike. But my bike is a tool to me to have fun. My bike isn't something that I want someone else to look at and go, those are really nice hubs. Like I want to go, those are durable hubs. Those hubs have been with me. You know what I mean? Like I look at my bikes like some people look at like their old beat up Ford pickups or something, where it's like, I know that pickup is going to be there for me. I know it's going to get me through everything I need to get through. And then you got the other person that just wants to get an Escalade and never takes it, or a 4-wheel drive, lifts it up, puts all this, $100,000 worth of lifted springs and never takes it off road. I'm the guy that's like, take it off road. And so that's where I kind of come from. And I'm looking for, like quality big bike components. I don't want to go and buy some bullseye hubs just because everyone says bullseye is great, because, I want to, or bullseye cranks or something like that, where I'm like, I want some cranks, dude, that's going to put up with my wall rides, with my tail whips. And if I fall, I don't have to worry about my $600 pedals scratching.
Right.
You know what I mean? So what would you say is your, like someone like me, is Box thinking about people like us that are, because you have it in BMX, dude, but are you looking ahead to the future, and what do you think about big bikes? Are you looking at, what we can do?
Yeah. When I was talking to Craig earlier this week about the interview, I have some news I want to say, but we're not ready to tell you yet. But okay. I want to say that I blew it. Big bikes are here to stay. I didn't believe it. I missed the fad. I wasn't on board because I thought it was going to come and go. Skateboards came and go, and I was afraid of that. And I lost a job at Raleigh because of skateboards, fads. And I've been around the business long enough to know that corporations really are very wary of short-lived stints. Well, I was wrong. It's here to stay. I kind of like the crowd. I'm kind of enjoying the whole thing, and we can play right into it. And I've heard some people tell me box doesn't fit in the retro, and I've heard some people tell me it does. So how do I find my place in that? Well, I'm working on it. That's all I can say. I'm working on it. I hear what you say. For me, a little bit more than what you said. It's more about technology. It's more about having a 20 millimeter hub, because when I go to do the wall ride, when I go to do your trick, I can tell you this, that 20 millimeter front axle was way better than the 10 millimeter axle. And I don't think the other guys are thinking like that. So basically, the goal is to bring what I know in race and bring it to retro.
You're looking at a bunch of dudes that are now building the bikes that we just couldn't afford when we were 12
and
and 13.
that's you said it right there. It's funny. I go into a few sites and Facebook pages, and I found a guy, and he had taken his bike and he had basically painted it, bronzed the whole thing, every nut and bolt and this and that, right? I saw the bike and I wasn't interested in so much the bike because I thought it was ugly, whatever. But I wanted to know who this guy was. What makes him tick? Where does he come from? How does he make a living? What's he drive? Where does he live? Because now I'm doing my research as a business owner to see if this is a viable thing. Well, in the background, he's got his Mercedes SUV. He's got his clear front doors that open up, the glass smoke doors. He's in a moderate, newer, track style home. And he's got his really nice concrete workout where he's got his bike. Okay, he's got 20,000 worth of concrete out front of his house. This guy spending money on his bike, he can afford it. Now that's my customer, right? Now I know that maybe a $200 pedal might be okay, because this guy might find that if I make it what I think is, one, technologically better, and two, has a feel of retro. And I think that's the whole key to this thing, to not give up on the style, not to give up on what we all live, but to bring new technology to that. And that's the idea, right?
You bring new technology that reminds me of what I grew up on. You know what I mean? Like it's like looking like I the first time you can watch the video, the first time I ride that Haro, I'm like, you guys, this is a time machine. I'm going back in time. I can't believe I'm sitting here riding this bike with my kids. The same, it looks exactly like I remember from 1987. And but the geometry was amazing, right? It's you fast forward that geometry and everything that we've learned, and you just mimic that style that I grew up with.
Right.
And I'm in, man. I'm like, tell me how much.
Yeah, dude, we have
name your price.
We have no problem opening up the wallet, right? Isaac and I are just like itching for that moment of like, dude. And Isaac calls me, Toby, and he's like, bro, you got to check this out. You got to check this out. And I'm already, as soon as he's still talking about it, I'm already on my phone entering my card information, because Isaac and I, we try stuff, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. But when we find something, and people ask us all the time, hey, do you guys have an alternate for this? Do you have an option for this? We tell them, yeah, this is what we found. This is what we've tried. This is what we like, and it seems like Isaac and I are just like fans of things that work, and things that work well, and things that hold up.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's what box has been about all along, reliability and technology and all that kind of stuff that we're kind of known about. But now I'm going to try to play the look that goes back. But Isaac, you said something about changing things, and this is a boastful statement, but I was racing mountain bikes in '98. I got involved in BMX around 2000 pretty heavily for my mountain bike career. And I went to a BMX track, went to a race. It's blue groove, banked turns, and people are starting to clip in, right? So I'm like, okay, clipless pedals. I mean, I love them. I know it's probably not some of your guys' thing, but everything I ride is clipless. So, but I look at the bikes, and the bottom brackets are still high. The knobbies are fat. And these are things that I learned as a downhiller. And as a cross-country guy, you can't have big fat lugs because they're slow. You have high bottom brackets, you can't turn. So I basically created, when I had intense, I lowered the bottom bracket, slacked the bike out, and put the fastest tire I could on that bike. We were selling about 12,000 bikes a year and 70,000 tires a year. It was simple analogy, walking into Reno, BMX National, looking down and going, why are these bikes the way they are with the track this way. And the track had evolved, but the equipment hadn't. And I literally was able to get 5-time bike of the year by changing the geometry. I mean, it was that simple. And wound up selling a crap load of tires because I made a fast tire, which the Speedster is a copy of the tire that I created back then, which is what all you guys, I think, run. It's the most popular tire, right? A really fast tire down the middle, got some knobbies on the side. So when Isaac does his wall ride, he doesn't slip up, right? So that's kind of what it's all about. So anyway, I think it's just, and I really think that comes from riding. I think that really comes from me able to look down after all those years of riding a bike and seeing what I need or what they needed at this point, right? Because it's not going to be me anymore. So
I love it, man. Toby, I told you, hey man, we'll interview you. We'll get you for an hour. I've kept you a good 15 minutes past that. So, you know, man, I can't wait to see what you do. And more than that, I mean, just getting to know you as a business person and the way that you think. I liked box before, but now I'm really into box. I'm like, because you know, it's one of those things where, man, you get it, you understand us, you're one of us, and you want the same things that we all want. You know, you want a quality part that's going to be there for you. So I don't have to think about my bike. I can think about the trick. I can think about that turn. I can think about clearing that double. And once I don't have to worry about the parts and think about that kind of stuff, and I just go, it takes all that stress out of it, and it just brings more fun to my bike riding experience. And literally that's what I'm into, man. My midlife crisis is my bike. I'm not out there buying Harleys and you know, put myself in danger like that. I'm going on Sunday afternoon bike rides with my kids, and I'm getting them off video games. And you know, you play a role in that, because you make riding my bike more enjoyable just by the little things. Like, you know, the simplicity of your lever design makes it easier for me to ride a wheelie and feather my brakes. And it's just something as simple as that. So thank you for your contribution to BMX, man. I really got to tell you, I love it, man. And I appreciate it.
Well, I thank you, but it's actually kind of easy. So, you know, I eat, sleep, and breathe it. So it's an easy job. And I'm actually very fortunate to be in this position, I got to say. And it's guys like you that keep me here and put me here. So, you know, thanks. So
yeah. And I'm going to continue to preach to Todd that we do need to see a Henderson Hauler at some point. On
you know, I got your
big
back on that, right, dude? Yeah, I will always second that for you, just for you, dude.
Yeah. Dude,
Todd, make a Henderson Hauler for Isaac and his army of one that he's so vocal about. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. If that happens, man, that's gonna be my personal win and my gift to BMX, man. You guys can have that Henderson Hauler moment that I had Christmas morning years ago. So cool. Craig, any last questions?
No, you know what? I definitely want to say, Isaac, you know, one of the things that you just mentioned, like the whole bike experience, you want it to be about whatever you're doing, right? It shouldn't be about like, is my day going to be taken away from me because I don't have a quality this or a reliable this on my bike, you know, and that seems like it happens sometimes. I do a lot of ride outs, Toby, and it's, you know, not saying that parts don't break and parts don't, you know, wear out and things like that, but it's all about the experience. I mean, I just love the way Isaac put that. I love the fact that, you know, you said that, you know, things at box are all about being different, be different, you know, thinking about new things and bringing that to guys like Isaac and I and yourself, who, you know, I'm sure you still enjoy riding bikes, and you definitely know the feeling of getting out there and having a good time, man. So I want to say thanks to you and for what you're doing at box, and, you know, with all that experience and giving something back that others can enjoy too, because you're doing something that you find enjoyable. You're doing something to bring quality and to bring reliability and technology and keep it in our sport. And I just want to say thanks for that, man. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure a lot of other folks, you know, do as well.
Thank you. And I guess a lot of people do, because we sell a lot of stuff. So there you go.
That's amazing.
Stuff, especially lately.
Well, I can't wait. I can't wait to buy some more. I can't wait to see what we do with big bikes. Thank you so much, you know, for hanging out with us tonight and for sharing your history, your past, and giving us a little bit of a teaser of the future. I'm looking forward to hearing more about this. So,
Cool.
Craig, why don't you send us out, brother?
You got it, buddy. Hey, man, I want to say first and foremost, a huge thank you to our special guest tonight, Toby Henderson, for showing up, for giving us all this wonderful insight to what's going on with him, his past, what's going on with box components, and everything that they're doing at Box. So, Toby, thanks again for showing up, for hanging out with us, man. We had such a good time. Isaac, thank you. I'm gonna give a special shout out as well to Mike Buff for introducing us and giving us Toby's contact, because without Mike, this would have been a little bit harder to accomplish. And I'm so glad Mike made that recommendation.
Who's that Isaac guy that
Shout
keeps
out Mike
stalking me?
Buff.
Yeah, shout out Mike Buff, because if not, it would have been like, who's this Isaac guy that keeps stalking me? Gosh.
Yeah, man, who is that dude? But let's also thank everybody who showed up here at Big Bike BMX. We want to thank all the listeners, everybody who showed up into the live chat tonight, everybody who's listening on a streaming podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, whatever you listen to. We want to definitely thank all you guys for showing up. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe, leave a comment, let Toby know what's going on. Hit up Toby through Box, send him an email if you got any ideas of what's going on. Tell me and Isaac what you thought about the show and what you want to see more of. And we definitely want to make that happen for you. Want to thank our sponsors for the show, KnightBikeCompany, PhoenixBikeCo, JTRacingusa, Etnies, OldBones Therapy, CrushedMX, and a special shout out, we haven't done it in a while, to Diamond Field for the theme music for our show. So thanks to all those folks. And Isaac, man, I had an awesome time. Thanks, Toby.
Thanks, guys. My pleasure.
Ba-ba.